Welcome back everybody to this next video all about Pinescript tutorials. In the last video we created an Ichimoku which looked very similar to this. Let me zoom in, clear it up a bit. So if we go into the code of the script that we did last time, this is what we wrote last time. Traditional settings of 9, 26, 52, and 26. In this video, we are going to alter this code, tweak it, pimp it up a little bit. First of all, I'm going to change the traditional default settings to what is generally accepted as crypto settings. This is entirely optional if you wish to do this. Some people choose to use these different settings, some people choose to double them. I'm just going to put in the accepted crypto settings, so where the Tenkan sen length will be 10, the Kijun sen length will be 30, so double that. For the Senku span B length will be 60, and then the offset is 30, and that's generally going on. That's a 10 is a week and a half. It's actually 10 and a half days, but for some reason it's rounded down to 10, not 11. You could try 11, but the beauty of having the inputs is that you can change it to whatever you like. Now let's save that and have a look at what minor change that does, and there we go. So now we have our Ichimoku set to our crypto settings, 10, 30, 60, 30. Cool. Now what we are also going to do is we're going to give some options to customize the way this looks. Now at this stage, the Tenkan sen and the Kumo are both being offset by the same value of 30. Well, I'm going to change that. I'm going to give them their own offsets so that we can give them different values. So let's start with the Kumo. To begin with, the variable that controls them both is called offset, and in the Chikou span plotline, this one here, we're calling that offset and making it negative by putting the little minus symbol at the beginning of it. Then on the Kumo, which is the Senku span A and B line, which is filled in, that's using the offset variable as well. So let's change the Kumo one. So we're going to change the variable name to Kumo underscore offset, and then we'll alter the title as well, so Kumo displacement. Now because I have done that, let's first change the Kumo offset to there. So now the Kumo is using that variable. I'm now going to use Alt and Shift to copy that line, and I'm going to change the word Kumo. Oops, yeah, let's get in there. There we go. There we go. And we're going to go CK offset and Chikou displacement. I suppose I could have just used the word offset, whatever. And now CK offset becomes negative CK offset. So now if we hit save, fingers crossed we don't get any errors. Yes, awesome. It's always nice. So now if we go into the format settings, and here we go, we have our standard Tenkan length of 10, Kijun length of 30, Senku span B length of 60. Now we have Kumo displacement of 30 and Chikou displacement of 30, which means if I click in here and scroll down, the yellow line shifts, but the Kumo does not. Bravo! And then if we go into Kumo displacement and say scroll up, Kumo goes forward and back and back and back and back and back. Yeah, there we go. So we can now decide where we want to put them. So just for now, back to 30, and let's just stick that as 30. So now we have options. Beautiful thing. Okay, next, let's see. Let's give the user the option to, rather than going into the settings, going into style and saying I don't want to see the Tenkan length, I only want to see the Kijun length, so let's turn that off, or let's whatever. Rather than doing it that way, we're going to show a basic use of an if statement, or the basic question mark colon type of if statement. So to do that, we are going to add some more option boxes underneath the input boxes. So what I mean by that is when the user goes into the settings box, into the inputs, at the moment we've got these 5 input boxes here. We're going to add, let's add 4, I think. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's add 4 options underneath in order to show the Tenkan, the Kijun, the Kumo, and the Chikou. Alright, it's pretty easy to do. So follow along, and I'll do the first one, and then I'll rapidly do the second one, third, fourth. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable that is going to hold what is called a Boolean value. And a Boolean value is either true or false, one or the other, that's it. So we're going to create a variable called show, oh, what's this? Oh, get rid of that. Let me try that again. Show underscore tk. And that is going to equal an input of true, and the title will be equal to show Tenkan line question mark. Okay, now at the moment this has been set to true, so now what we'll do is we'll take the variable that is currently holding the value of true, copy that, and now in the plot line of the Tenkan scene we're going to ask the question, do we want to show the Tenkan line? If so, plot the value of tk. If it's false, it's not applicable, don't worry about it, don't plot it. So to do that we're going to paste the show Tenkan variable. We're going to make it a question mark, so in other words, show the Tenkan line. If the answer is yes or true, then plot the value of tk, which in this point is the midpoint of the tk length, which we did last time. I won't explain that in this video, did it last time. However, if the answer to the question show tk is false, then on the other side of the question, the colon, we're going to put NA. That's not applicable. Nuh-uh. Now by doing that, and we hit save, and let it save, do the little, get rid of that, there we go, boom. So now we have in the settings, we have this little show Tenkan line with a checkbox, and if we uncheck it, this blue line will disappear. Poof, there it goes. Turn it back on. Poof, there it is. Yahoo! So, see you later. And so that's how we make options based on conditions. So that essentially the condition is right here, using the question mark and the colon. So the condition is whether or not this part of the side of the equation is true or false. If it's true, then do whatever's on this first part of the question mark. If it's false, do whatever's after the colon. So if this, then do that. Otherwise, do that. So now I'll rapidly go through and do it for the Kijun line. So to do that, I'm going to copy that twice. I'm going to go show KJ and show CK, and I'll copy that one more time, and show Kumo. Now we'll go show the Kijun. Oops, that's not it. Kijun. There we go. Show Chikou and show Kumo. There we go. So now we've got our 4 variables all set to true. And so now we follow the same principle. Show Kijun, question mark. If true, then plot the value that is the variable kj, otherwise not applicable. Same thing for the Chikou. Show Chikou, question mark, plot the ck, otherwise not applicable. And same thing for the Kumo, but we've got to do it twice this time because the Kumo is 2 lines. So, show Kumo, ska, otherwise not applicable. Same for skb. Show Kumo, question mark, then plot skb, otherwise not applicable. Hit save. Wait for the red asterisk to disappear. Nice. Now if we go into the settings, we have the 4 lines. So we can go, we know the Tenkan line will turn off, so the Kijun line, off. Show the Chikou line, off. Show the Kumo, off. Turn off the Tenkan. Oh, and we're back to standard candles. Yay! Okay, so that is one way of doing, I guess you could call them if-else statements in a way. Let's make this indicator tell you when the signals are being generated. So in other words, if we go up to the Ichimoku Trader website, the way to use the Ichimoku is with the signals that it can generate. So the first one we can use is, this one's usually considered quite a good, reliable signal, in quotation marks, is when the Chikou span crosses, well, it's above or below the Kumo. Let's actually do a different signal. And this should show you sort of roughly how we're going to do it. Alright, so to begin with, the signal I'm going to code here is when the Chikou span, the yellow line, actually just for the sake, I'm going to turn off the Kumo and I'm going to turn off the Tenkan line. Right, so this condition is just dealing with the Chikou span, the yellow line, and this red line, which is the Kijun line. Now the signal is when it crosses above, it's generally a good sign, and when it crosses below, it's generally going to be bearish. Obviously you're going to get these little fake outs where it goes up and down and then it carries on down. So you could say, let's see, when that was being formed, it was about over here. Yep, let's go for that. Actually, I've found on the 4-hour chart, this tends to be a bit more reliable. So at this point here, if you'd gotten out when that crossed, would have saved you all of this. And now that it's starting to turn around, Chikou span is going up, and in this case, this is where you might want to adjust your setting and say bring it back to 10. So if we bring it to 10, let's see what would have happened. At this point here, which would have been around here, actually let me get my arrows going. So at about this point, about there, the Chikou span was crossing and it was saying time to get in, and sure enough, price went up, so that would have been good. And if I get rid of the arrow, and if we look at where the Chikou span crossed there, that would have been about there, and sure enough, that was pretty good time to get out. So get out there, get back in there. That's that would have been quite good. So that would have saved you 10% loss, roughly 10.89, whatever. Cool. All right, so let's code that. Now I am going to, well, what are we going to need? We're going to need the Chikou. We're going to need the Kijun. All right, let's put this underneath. Just for now, I'm going to put a big line of equal signs just to visually separate that, and I'm going to make it a comment, obviously. Okay, here we go. So first of all, we're going to tell the user, if they're looking at the code, what we're going to do. So we're going to say this is making a comment. This condition, let's call it the first condition, so let's say condition number 1. And it's going to be about if the Chikou crosses Kijun. So that's sort of the purpose. That's what we're wanting to build here. And we want this condition, when it signals, we want to have the option to have it signal or not signal. And that's the same thing we're going to do that we did back here, show the Tenkan or the Kijun, all that sort of thing. So let's create that condition. So condition 1, let's keep it nice and short and simple. So let's go C_1. That's going to be our variable, and that is going to be equal to an input, because we want the user to turn it on or off. Let's call it true for now, so that it shows up straight away. And the title is going to be equal to words show Chikou crossing Kijun. And let's make it a question mark so the user can go, oh yes, I want to do that, or not. Okay, so now let's create a condition where that is true or not. Alright, so let's call this condition, it's a new variable. Let's call that, nice and simple, short, ck_x_kj. That's not, yeah, let's take my finger off the, actually let's use the correct button, there we go, underscore not plus, the x_kj. Right, that looks better. So in other words, Chikou x cross kj, Chikou cross kj, and it's a variable, so it's going to be equal to, well, what if we created a function? Because remember, if we were on the daily chart before, we had a situation when this was back here where it popped up and down, and therefore crossed up and crossed down one after the other. So it was kind of like a fake out. So what if we had a way to filter out those fake outs? So we're going to create a function for this, and we're going to put the function right up the top here. Now, with the beauty of television, which this is not television, it's actually YouTube, I'm going to just whack it in there and explain it later. And there we go. So what I've written here is its own little section. It's not really a function, well, there are two functions. First of all, I've got the variable crossbars, and that is going to have a value of 1, and the minimum value is 0. So you can't have a negative number of crossbars. 0, you can basically turn this off. And what that means is it's the number of bars to confirm the cross. So by having it as a number 1, not only does it have to cross above, but it has to stay above by at least 1 candle. So the first function is called CrossOverConfirm, and this function is going to take in two parameters. I've called it x and y. And what it does is it has, the first part of the function is a crossover function, where it says the crossover of x to y. If x crosses y, it becomes true. Then the bars since function counts up how long it has been since that condition was true. Then that number of when that condition was true is equal to the number of bars, and x has to be greater than y, because remember, x is crossing above y. And then the second function is the same thing, but it's if it crosses below. So in other words, the CrossUnder function of x to y. Now remember, when we're feeding into these parameters, we're going to say that the Chikou is x and the Kijun is y. So taking that on board, we're going to say the function of crossing Chikou over Kijun, how long ago did that happen? And that's what this part tells you. How many bars since that occurred? Let's say it has just happened right now, this moment. In other words, it happened 0 bars ago. This part of the equation would deliver the value 0. And 0 equal, in other words, is 0 equal to the number of crossbars, which in this case we've set as 1. So already that statement is false. But let's say it happened 1 bar ago. So for example, let's get our little arrow. Right here, it crossed. Right on that red candle, it crossed, which means let's say that candle we are currently evaluating this function. Right on this candle, on the 23rd of August, 2018. Okay, so what we're now saying is the crossover of the Chikou span to the Kijun line, how long ago did that occur? The bars since function says, well, that occurred 1 bar ago. On this side of the equation, that we're now saying, well, the number 1, is that equal, in other words, is 1 equal to the value stored in crossbars, which is 1. So up to this point, bars since crossover equal crossbars, that is true. So far we have a true, yay, so thumbs up. Now we've got and x, or Chikou, the value of Chikou, is greater than the value of Kijun. So in this case, right here, that's the value of the Chikou, and below that is the Kijun. So therefore, Chikou is greater than Kijun. So if we were evaluating this function on that particular bar, we would have 1 equals 1, which is true, and x is greater than y, which equals true. So true and true is true. So therefore, when we call that function CrossOverConfirm, feed it the parameter ck and kj, the Chikou and the Kijun line, we would get a true. And then we can use that true to do other stuff. Alright, so that's basically the explanation of what's going on there. And everything's exactly the same for the second one, except it's for underneath. So did it cross under the Kijun line, and the crossbars is 1, and the Chikou is less than Kijun. So that's what these functions do. Now that we have these functions built into our script, right at the start, we can now use that down below here, Chikou cross kj, and we have this variable set up. So let's do it.